Hello and welcome everyone to today's session. Today in this session we'll be talking about C pointers, arrays and strings. In the previous video I've already introduced you to what pointers are, right? I've already introduced what pointers are, how to use the pointers, how they are declared and how you can access the values that the pointer is directing to, right? We said pointers are just like variables, right? That stores the address of another variable. That's just what pointers are. Pointers typically what stores address. It doesn't store the value directly, but it stores the address of the variable that is holding that value, which I also give an example. Let me show you. I said pointers are declared like this, right? I can say int, there, let me just say ptr. So I've declared this pointer, which is what? Which is ptr. So let's say I have another variable n here, and I want n to store the value 10, right? So I can simply say this ptr now, I can simply say ptr is equals to what? Is equals to an n. Here, this is ampersand, sorry. So this ampersand, I've already explained, it is used to get the address of a variable. So this pointer here now will only store the address of this variable, right? So indirectly, you can point to this variable using this ptr variable here. So whenever you call this ptr variable anywhere, it's like you are calling the address of this variable here, n, right? So I also said, what if I want to access the value inside this variable n? You see, this ptr is storing what? The address of the variable, this variable which holds the value n. So how can I access the value here, 10, which is stored in this variable n, using the pointer? Since the pointer is pointing to the variable here, right? So how can I access the value which is inside n? So that's when we use the dereferencing operator, which I said you can simply use the asterisk, right? Then you can say ptr, right? So this would surely get you what? The address of the variable that the pointer is pointing to, which is 10. Sorry, the value of the variable the pointer is pointing to, which is 10. Pointer here is pointing to which address? Address of n. And n stores which value? N stores 10. So when you do this asterisk ptr, then you are trying to say, okay, I want you to get the value that is stored in the pointer, in the address that this pointer is pointing to. So whenever I say 20 like this now, okay, so it's like I'm changing the value of n to be 20. So n will now be equals to what? 20. So what happened? I tried to access the value of the variable that this pointer is pointing to, which is n, right? And change the variable to 20 instead of what? Instead of 10. So this is pointers, right? And this is how pointers work. So now let's talk about strings here. So whenever you declare a variable, let's say of type car, let's say you have something like this, car, and you say is equals to, like I said, set of characters are considered string, right? So if you're adding more than one character, then that's considered a string. So if I have, let's say software like this, if I have something like this, software. So I've declared a variable character, right? And it's storing this what? This set of characters here, which is what? Software. So how do you think this software is stored in the memory? It is stored in a way that is called what? An array. So what do you understand by arrays? Simply, arrays are just like also a variable in this case, but they are used to store multiple items, right? In an array, you can store multiple items, but with the same data type, okay? Arrays stores variables with the same data type. Let me just show you how this is going to be stored in the memory. So in the memory, it's going to be stored something like this. We have SOF, right? Something like this. So sorry, E here. So this how it's going to be stored, block of bytes like this. Then at the end there is something they call the null byte terminator. So it's going to end with this /0. Okay, so whenever you declare a character, this is how it is stored in the memory. At the end, a string, at the end it must end with this /o. This is showing the what? The memory that, okay, this is the end of the strings. Okay, this is the end of the string, right? So this variable here, sorry, I made a mistake here. Let's say I have let me clean this. this should be car here, then let me just say S1 for instance. So this is the variable name S1, right? And this is what the string to be stored in S1. So now this is the memory of S1. Okay, so this is how S1 will be stored in the memory. So these are what arrays. As you can see, this arrays here contains the same data type, right? All of them are car. You can see this is a car, 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 right? So this is how they are stored in the memory. I'm just trying to give you an example of how the arrays are. Okay, so like I said, this is how they are stored in the memories. So and each of these bytes here you are seeing here, as you can see, I have for S0, F. Each of these bytes here have what? Have their own address in the memory. They have their own address. I've already explained to you how to get the address, right? In the previous video when I was explaining pointers, right? We've seen how to get the address. So let's say this here has an address of 10. It's not possible actually. Addresses are stored in hex. We've already talked about that. Let's say this is what? This has an address of 10. So this is what? 11, right? This is 12. Don't forget, characters are stored in what? The size of characters is what? Is 1 byte, right? That's why I'm having 11, 12 here, then 13 here, 14, 15 here, sorry for my handwriting, 16, 17, and then 18. So let's say these are the different addresses for this different byte here, right? In arrays, the index begins with 0. When you are trying to address any element in array, you have to address it using its index. Okay, when you store this in the memory, they have their own index. So it begins with index 0. This is 0. This should take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then finally 8. Okay, this is the index. So whatever you store in an array, you are only going to access that particular item using its index. So now let's say I want to access this W here. How can I get this W here? I can simply say S1. S1 is the name of the variable, right? So what is the index? The index is what? Index 4, right? As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the fifth element, right? It is the fifth element. But because the counting begins from 0, that's why this will be take what? Index 4, right? So this is what? This is 4. So whenever I do something like this, I will be able to access this, or I will be able to target this, right? So if I want to target this E, the last E here, I can simply add the variable name, which is S1, right? And then what is the index? It's in what? Index 7. As you can see, index 7. So I can simply do something like this. Okay, so let's say I want to print this only. I can just say printf. Let me clean some part of this. Let me just say all right, so if I want to print it, I can just say printf here. I can just say printf, right? Printf. So what am I going to print? I'm interested in printing which character here? This, right? This W here. I will just say percentage, right? Percentage S, right? I'm printing a string. So I will say this and then comma. Then I will simply pass in the variable, which is S1 here. Is what? W is in what? Index 4, right? So I'll just say this, something like this. Sorry, I'll just close the bracket here. So this will print what? This will print the 4th index of this variable S1. So I'm just trying to show you how these strings are stored in our memory and how they can be accessed. Okay, strings are stored as arrays in the memory. And we've seen how to what? How to access different data in our arrays. Right? Let's see another example. Let's see another example. Let me clean this here. So now, let's say I want to store another set of string. Let me just say car here. Let's name it S2. So, and this strings is what? Is let me just say happy, for instance. I hope we are all happy. So let's say it's happy like this. So how is this going to be stored in the memory? This string here is going to be stored as an array in the memory. So it's going to be stored like something like this S2, right, which is the variable name. So then it's going to be like this. So we have H A P P Y, right? So something like this. So and then the null byte here. It's always going to end with this null byte. Okay, this is how it's going to be in the memory. So let's say the address is 100, 101, right? 102, address in the memory, 103, 104, 105. Okay, so this is the address. So what is the index of H here? The index is 0. Like I said, it always begins with index 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now, if I do something like this, S2, right, is the variable name. So, and I said 4 here. So which variable am I targeting? Sorry, which data item am I targeting here? Which data belongs to index 4 here? Which data belongs to index 4? Y belongs to index 4, as you can see. So when I do something like this, it's like I'm targeting this Y here. So what if here is 0? So index 0, that's index 0. Don't forget, this is what is square bracket. Okay, so which item is in index 0? H is index 0. Okay, so this is how these strings are stored in the memory as arrays. So one thing you need to know again is this S2 here, the variable name. So whenever you call S2 here takes the address of the base data item in the array. So this is H, right? This is the first data item in the memory. So S2 here, whenever you call S2, its default address is what? Is 100. Is the same as this of H, right? So you can refer to this set of array entirely, this array, you can refer to it by simply saying S2. When you say S2 here, you are targeting the base element, which contains the address 100. So by default, the address of this S2 is the address of the first element here. Okay, so by getting the address of this first element, you can be able to get the rest of the element by using pointer arithmetic. We are going to see how to do all these things. So I'm just trying to give you an intro of these arrays and pointers before we begin solving the task, and I hope this works. So if you don't understand anything, you can ask, and we'll get to see how we can create a session and explain all this things. I just hope this is clear enough.